Hello, this is Dr. V again with the Burnout Show, and today we're going to dive into a very interesting topic on how brainwashing and social norms play a role in leading people to burnout. And today my guest is Raffaele William. Do I say it correct, Raffaele?
Yeah, quite close actually.
Okay. So you're a world citizen, a little bit like me. I've also lived on 3 continents at least. And so you studied political philosophy, very interesting. And now you're on a mission to help as many people as possible to reclaim their life by returning to a state of true health. I love it. Even though I'm trained as a medical doctor, I know there's a lot more things we can do apart from giving people pharmaceuticals to make people healthy. And so I love hearing from people with all kinds of different health therapies that can contribute to people's well-being. I also love that you work with a Japanese company that distributes longevity products. So if you can share links with me, I'll make sure that that will all go in the text under the video and podcast. Okay. So
Yeah,
first
sure thing.
question, Raffaele, how did you really end up being interested in true health?
That is a great question to start with. Well, it was in Latin America, and I was just traveling, and at a certain point, I met a sort of shaman, to say. She was a Mapuche, so the indigenous tribe of the Chileans,
Mhm.
and I went to seek her assistance as a doctor, and she analyzed my urine, and she looked at me, and then she was like, "My friend, why do you still choose poison?" Meaning alcohol. And I was like, "Oh, well, because I'm a 20-year-old student." And that's where the seed was planted of, for example, a social norm being, yeah, if you're a student, you should be an alcoholic. That's a direct correlation. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, actually, most students are alcoholics medically speaking. However, it's so normal, it's obvious, right? And so in that moment, I went for a whole month of just total sobriety, like just genuinely water and good nutrition, so not even junk food. And that's when I felt the best I've ever felt in my entire life. And from there, the seed was planted of, oh, wait, yes, this is true health. And I feel so much better in this state rather than not. And then as months and years went by, I also realized that that's really what I want to do with my entire life.
That's such a good story. I've been invited to go to Peru in August to meet with the local healers and things like that, and plant medicine. I'm still hoping to win the lotto to get there, but that's one of my dreams, to have that experience that you just had. And it's so true. I have a 20-year-old son who is a student and who likes his toxins in various forms, and he says like, "Hey, I'm a student, I'm supposed to be doing this now." I said like, right. So it's true, it's such a norm. And me living in the UK, alcohol is really, really a big part of their lifestyle. And it's criminal, isn't it, that there's no label poison on it more clearly. I mean, it didn't really help with cigarettes that they put these ugly pictures on there. They're still selling it. People are still buying it, unfortunately. But when they put it on the market, I heard an interesting story in history that they already knew in 1600 the British were the ones who actually exported tobacco the most, knowing that people who use tobacco die younger and are very unhealthy. And they said like, well, rather than just keeping it in for our country, let's just send it to America.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is a typical business idea, well, because otherwise they wouldn't make any money from the tobacco anymore if they would have said publicly that this is bad for you. So unfortunately, that's the world we live in. So let's focus on the true health without toxins and chemicals. Can you give me 3 norms that people who end up burnt out probably should throw away, like limiting beliefs that can lead to burnout? I had a conversation just now with somebody else. We spoke about a few limiting beliefs and therapy for that. But yeah, just tell me, because I loved your idea that we are brainwashed, and we are, I admit, we are brainwashed. But give us some juicy examples, please.
Of course. So yeah, before giving the examples, on that note of being brainwashed, that's the occurrence of brainwashing is when we are given information voluntarily, knowing with the person who's giving us that information knows for a fact that it's either false or misleading. And um, there's this one image that's very clear in my mind where we can imagine 3 batteries. So we have a social battery, right? Because we are social animals. Then we have a career battery, so that's our work. And then we also have our health battery. And there's the visual that comes to mind is that none of these 3 can be charged at the same time. So we can never have a full health battery, a full career battery, and a full social battery at the same time. Of course, what I'm saying is the social norm that we've accepted that is a rule, B rule. It's what Vishen Lakhiani calls a bullshit rule
Yeah.
in the Code of the Extraordinary Mind. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes, I'm aware of it. Yeah.
Amazing. And so yeah, the fact that we've accepted the fact that we can't be happy in a community, happy at our jobs, and happy with our body and with our health at the same time is just absolutely absurd. Because eventually, if you don't have all these 3 in balance, you're gonna run into burnout.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
That's a big one that I teach my clients, is how to balance your life so that you put in time in and energy in each part of your life so that it's never out of balance. Well, as much as possible stays balanced. That's very important. But what do you really, I don't resonate actually what you say, that this is a belief that people have, but maybe this is because I've already survived burnout twice, that I had to let go of that belief. That's, I mean, I grew up in a society where you have to study hard, you have to work hard. That's like the number one thing in order, if you want to be a valuable person in society. So if you hear the noise, that's my dog coming in. I'm sorry. Hey, puppy. So I think that's kind of a stupid idea, because it creates A-type characters who just work until they drop dead at work. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with my colleagues. So yeah, it's a very, very, and I think it's even worse in the US, because they get less time off than in Europe. And they sometimes don't even take their holidays that they have the right to take, because they feel like they have to constantly work and perform. It's a very, very big pressure, and it doesn't make sense to me. Once you've experienced health issues, you know that your health is more important than your work, for sure, because you're easy replaceable at work, but you only have one body, and that's not replaceable. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, I
So
like that
what
analogy.
is another brainwashed idea in our society that leads to burnout, you think?
Well, actually, tagging on what you just said as well, we've been brainwashed to believe that we all want success, right? The capitalistic idea of success. And what then would also bring burnout is the fact that we've also tied the idea of success to hard work. You know, this idea of working hard and just really maybe dedicate a decade of your life to work super hard, and then you'll be financially free forever, etc. However, if in those 10 years you've degraded your body and you've drinking enough caffeine to be a tachycardic for the rest of your life, then I don't know how, like, if that's a valid trade-off. So I
That's a
would
valid
definitely say
point.
that, come again?
That's a very valid point. I mean, most of the people that I work with, they get energy from coffee, so from caffeine. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's something
And a
else that
lot of
we've
them
really
have
just accepted.
mentioned cardiac arrhythmias and tachycardia. There's definitely a link there. But stress in itself can also give tachycardia, whether you drink caffeine
Absolutely.
or not.
Well, as
Pressure.
a matter of fact, actually, I don't remember the precise statistics. However, I remember that in past 50 years, like so before 50 years ago, heart disease was hardly even an issue in
Hmm.
human existence.
Yeah.
And then once this new wave of capitalism came through, that's when we've started seeing heart attacks every day, literally just in every country.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because of stress, indeed.
Mm.
Because ultimately, caffeine leads to stress. Excess of caffeine leads to stress as well.
Mm.
And also just the blatant mental stress that we have
Mm.
of, I mean, so many working class people who are just stressed to put food on the table.
Hmm.
And that really all adds up to burnout, of course.
Mm.
And then unfortunately also there's that type of burnout where you can't afford to, take a moment to pause, zoom out, and look at your life and analyze and act accordingly.
Yeah, but
But you
wait,
have to.
if you don't do that in time, you'll end up in intensive care or something, and then you'll have time to look at it from a different perspective. Yeah, that's my lesson. So yeah, ideally, I would like people to look at their work-life balance before they burn out. And
Mhm,
also because it puts a very heavy strain on their relationships. So if people bring the stress from work home, then I've seen it that often leads to divorce even. So that's like another victim of burnout, is that the partner and what happens to the children. And so yeah, it's a very big problem, and I would rather teach people just like you, I guess, how to be healthy, not only by the food we ingest, but also by how our mindset and how we. I teach people to prioritize themselves and their own health and well-being is number
mhm,
one before you do all of the other things that you have to do for everybody else. And do you even have to do them all? That's another thing, because a lot of people believe they have to care for everybody else before they can take some time off for themselves, for instance. Mothers think they have to sacrifice themselves for their children. That's a belief that is not useful for mothers. So yeah, can you think of
absolutely.
any other examples?
Um, yes, I'd love to bounce off what you just said just a moment, which is that sometimes the most radical act of selflessness is
Mm-hmm.
selfishness, in the sense that if I take care of myself and give myself love, then automatically I will be more present and more available to help others.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really think that's an underestimated thing in society. So I wanted to underline that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, another social norm that we've been brainwashed to believe is that time is money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This one might be a tricky one because, yeah, we might be treading some rough waters here. However, first of all, money doesn't exist in nature, right? So that's blatantly just an instrument. First of all, it's interesting to think of it as an instrument rather than an objective. But that's a whole other tangent. Anyhow, that money is an instrument that we don't have to trade our time for. It's to value our time as it were money means that essentially we are money, because time is all that we have. At the end of the day, take away all of our belongings, we will have oxygen and time.
Yeah.
And I really disassociate with this idea because it really um ci deteriora, pardon the Italian, it deteriorates our being to something that doesn't even exist in nature. Yet we are a
Mm-hmm.
part of nature, although we've forgotten that as a species for the most part.
Yeah.
And how can we associate ourselves with something that doesn't even exist in nature? So yeah, I'd say that's definitely
Mm.
something that we've been brainwashed to believe, and that ultimately leads to burnout, because there are people who will trade as much time as they possibly can to have money to then maybe enjoy that 3 weeks of vacation a year. And that's, uh, again, sending back to the idea of work-life balance, right?
Mm. Yeah, that sounds a lot like me because I get paid per hour. And I am saving up for that holiday to Peru. So, yes. So what's the solution? Because where is the food going to come from, or who's going to pay the mortgage if I stop exchanging my time for money? I mean, it's my skills, it's my knowledge, it's my attention that I put to good use to help other people, which I think is quite a noble way. And they, in exchange, they give me money so I can feed my children. They could also give me
Mhm.
food instead. But what I mean, yeah. But still, in order to pay for my dwelling, I need money, and for the electricity, and for the water, and drive my car.
Uh,
So,
Absolutely. Everything that is included in this society involves money,
mhm.
unfortunately. However, yeah, in fact, actually, it really took me a long time to come to terms with this, because for a solid year, I was in a, in a burnout, essentially, trying to come to terms and cope with reality, where I was like, okay, I need to live in a society where something as non-existent as money, which is just a concept, exists. So I started fantasizing about, okay, I'll go live in a self-sufficient community, and, we'll grow our own food, et cetera, et cetera. And although this is very idyllic and utopic,
Yeah.
it is also realistic. I mean, there across the globe, it is possible. However, I really felt the calling to not abandon society yet, and to stay present and try to give the contribution that I can here. So anyways, to respond to your question of how does one then disassociate, or like unconstruct this belief of time equals money, I would say financial education, because there are ways to have money turn into more money, right?
Yeah.
And it's a whole world, and it does take time to learn it.
Mhm.
However, once one can learn how to turn money into money, then that's when I realized that really you can start living your dream life, because you
Mhm.
choose to dedicate your time not to something that makes you money, but to what truly enlightens your spirit and
Yeah,
turns your
that's
soul
that's
on and
wonderful.
smiling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. So, what do you do actually then with your time when you follow your soul calling? How do you help people, and how can people contact you?
Well, I haven't quite yet opened the social media account for the precision nutrition coaching that that I've just gotten certified in not even a month ago.
Yeah.
So once that link is out, I will most definitely send it your way. And
Yes.
what I do with my time is, essentially, I really see myself as a tool, as an instrument for people who have an idea of what their best version of themselves looks like. And then I simply ask, okay, great. What does that version of yourself do on a daily basis? What are the habits that that person has? Okay, amazing. Now, what are the habits that you have today? Then we find the gap between A and B, and
Mm.
we bridge that gap. And
Okay.
in a nutshell, yeah, that's kind of what I do as a
Sounds
coach.
like coaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, dokie. Is there anything else you want to add?
Um, well, since we're on the note of burnout, I really, 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 from the bottom of my heart, suggest that everyone dabbles with meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation being any sort of meditation. It's not necessarily legs crossed, fingers together, and then oh.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that is a type of meditation. However, walking in a park, is also meditation.
That's my favorite.
Talking to a loved one about a problem instead of keeping it in your own head where you just run in circles like a hamster on a wheel, that is meditation. And I find that through meditation, one can really have a lot of benefits with regards to mental health. And of course, Verla, you're much more of an expert on that than myself. Um,
For
However, yeah, I
trial
would
and
like to
error.
end on that note.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely, it's my favorite form of meditation is to go out in nature and hug a tree or talk to a bird. I do that
Bless.
whenever I can.
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful because when you connect to the bigger thing, you forget like your miserable little life that you are too focused on, because it's just a speck in the whole of existence, isn't it? It puts things in perspective. So yeah, I do. It was one of my favorite things to do. But other people really like sitting in a yoga position with a straight back. It's not for me. I do like binaural beats to put my brain from stress to relax, like in 10 minutes. That's one of the tips that I could add to it. Yeah, and there's a lot of other devices that I've trialed and tested for relaxation. I will talk about it on another interview. So, you will let me know when you're ready to share your links to Precision. Why don't we talk a little bit about the Viome options of how people can test their microbiome, how it works, and how then we're both coaches, how we can help them then to change their lifestyle by eating differently. I must say, for me, it was a shock when I got my test results back, because I was eating healthy vegetables and they told me they're not good for me. So I had to stop eating all the healthy vegetables. So it was a paradigm shift for me. And I must say it helped me to become a lot less bloated. So yeah, but it gives me a lot less choice now in vegetables, but I can still eat salad, so every day. So yeah, you just tell people how it could help their health if they would step on board with us as nutrition coaches and do the Viome tests, because that's part of it. It's not just, we're not dietitians. We really
Yeah,
help
that's
people through their personal
very
results
important touch.
change their lives to lead a healthier life through food. Okay, how would you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would I would go back to the expression, the very famous expression, "You are what you eat," right? And that's not just a saying that mom says to force you to eat vegetables. That's the truth insofar as the human body contains more bacteria than it does human cells. And those bacteria, for the 99% are in are in our intestine. They are our microbiome. Then, of course, a lot of them are also on our skin, and we also have the oral microbiome. And what Viome does differently from all other companies out there, because the other like 12 or so companies that test your microbiome, they're going to be looking for DNA. And the problem with that is, we could take famous Lucy skeleton DNA and not even know if Lucy is alive or dead. Lucy being the Australopithecus.
Yeah.
So DNA is useful, sure, but it's a range of literally millions of genes that may or may not be active. So what Viome does is they look at the RNA to see the transcription and the translation of said DNA. And by doing so, they're able to provide a ad personam, so a list per person. So it's not, some keto diet or some generalized universal diet, right? It's something tailored to the person in discussion who tests their microbiome. And then what happens is you get 4 lists of food. On one hand, you have avoid food. So food that is genuinely bad for you as as you in particular, then
Yeah.
minimize. So something that you can eat, you know, once in a while because it's not going to kill you. And then enjoy. The enjoy foods are a beautiful list of, you know, nothing wrong with them, eat in abundance. And my personal favorite is the superfood list,
Yeah.
because this list is tailored to biohacking, basically. If you're
Mm.
into biohacking, then you're
Yeah.
going to love this, because your superfoods are what enhance your body. So they take their health scores that are not optimal and they turn them into optimal.
I love
And
it. Yeah. Yeah, my superfoods, the papaya and kiwis are on there, so I love those.
nice.
Yeah, but I had to stop eating broccoli and things like that. Oh no, shock!
Right, absolutely. I mean, I had in my avoid list, I had turmeric. The
Yeah,
anti-inflammatory spice, by definition, was inflaming
yeah,
me.
yeah.
That's
Almost
insane.
everybody I speak to can't have turmeric, so I find it interesting. Because yeah, you see, that's how we got a completely different idea on what was good for us, for our microbiome. And what I love about this company Viome is they also test your oral microbiome,
Mhm.
and they even can detect early throat cancer or mouth cancer through their testing, and they can give you a personalized toothpaste, right? I think
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
real progress. So, and you send off a stool sample, you send off a blood sample, just a finger prick, and then a swab in your mouth. Did I forget anything? That's mainly it. These are the three samples that you send off. And then a
Mhm.
few weeks later, you get your whole program of foods that are good for you and foods that are bad for you. So thank you for explaining it your way. It sounded really enticing. Our time is almost up, so I want to thank you for talking all the way from Rome to Carlisle in England about how we've been brainwashed. And just to recap, some important topics was that time is not money. And on charging, that all your batteries can be charged at the same time. So I'll put some more text underneath the video and underneath the podcast, and then just let me know how you want to be contacted when you're ready. I
Sure
will
thing.
stop.
Thank you very much, Verla, for hosting me.